Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven today with a price figure review, but make no mistake, this is no ordinary price figure. And by today in 2025, you guys already knew that Taito is the best price figure brand out there. By a long shot. If you compare them as the #1 ranking price figure brand, you compare it to anyone else that is in second place, which I'll let you guys debate whether it is Sega or Furio. You guys decide which is in second place, but there is a big gap between Taito and everyone else. And this figure over here further cements Taito's greatness in this regard. In fact, they managed to surpass my expectations even further. So we are looking at a new product line by Taito. This is the only second figure in the T-most lineup, which are pretty big price figures. They are very close to 1/6 scale. We are looking at Taito T-most Marin Kitagawa Shizuku cosplay version. And given that this is a price figure, it means that there is no fixed price for this thing. You're looking at anywhere between 2,500 all the way to over 4,000 yen, depending on where you purchase it, what kind of deals you're able to find it, and where you purchase your price figures. So it is a low budget figure in a way. It is firmly in a price figure category, but the kind of quality you're getting out of this thing is just astounding in so many ways. I have already reviewed the very first T-most figure by Taito, this one over here. Also a Marin Kitagawa figure, but a different cosplay, least version. And if I compare the two, they are remarkably similar, but this Shizuku version, which is the newer one, takes things a step further. It is slightly even better than this one. So it is so incredible in the sense that Taito is finding new ways to improve their price figures. Her head height over here, including the base, is 29 centimeters, same height as Lee's. And if you deduct the base height, she's roughly 27.5, 28 cm also, which is firmly in 1/6 scale territory. And that means she is bigger than pretty much every single genuine figure of Marin Kitagawa ever made by any other brand, making this an even better value offering. I have purchased this figure from a local anime convention, Animangaki 2025, and I have published an event tour video, a walk around video last week. So if you haven't checked out that video, go and have a look. That is what an average anime convention looks like in Malaysia, and I mean a major event, not a tiny one. There are a lot of things to see, a lot of things to purchase, and I was trying to save money by not spending too much. So this was the only figure I purchased, and I wanted to review her quickly, which is why she's not part of any of my figure haul, be it this month or next month. Speaking of the assembly of this figure, they shrunk and made the box as small as possible by splitting the figure into two halves, and then the figure base is stacked behind multiple layers. So you have a huge figure with a box that is smaller in dimension compared to the height of the figure. That is amazing packaging coming from Taito. And then there is the assembly process where it is a bit difficult to get the ball sack into the base. Yes, this Marin Kitagawa figure has the same ball sack as the older version over here, except it is now red in color because someone got kicked in the balls and it is now swollen. I know it is a love-shaped base, but then I just couldn't overlook the fact that it looks like a ball sack when you invert it. Anyways, not much problem with the base, except despite having 2 or 3 separate connections between the figure and the base, this is not a very stable figure, unfortunately. So when I shake the figure, she wobbles quite a bit. It applies to both figures. However, considering the price point of this figure, I can accept the wobbliness of this figure. It is not the worst I've seen. There are way worse figures out there and they cost more than this one. So this is fine. And then moving on to the sculpting of this figure, it is roughly price figure level, right? It is not exceptional in any way. The detail level is what you would expect in a price figure, but what makes her different and better than many other brands or many other product lines by Taito is that the refinement is next level. For example, mold lines, which is something we see in pretty much every price figure, regardless of price point. There is some of it on this least version of Marin Kitagawa as well, but it is reduced further in this Shizuku version right here, the newer version. So if you look at the back of her leg over here on the skin region, The least version has a bit of mold line that is visible under direct lighting. But on Shizuku over here, it is still there, but it is less obvious, and I think that is partly because of her stockings over here, where Taito has incorporated this fabric-like texture. It is rough texture over here. So this kind of texture, it hides the seam line, the mold line better, and you won't be able to see it unless you look very closely. So in terms of mold line, this is a small improvement over Liz over here, making her an even better figure. Outside of the back of her legs over here, there is a bit of mold lines at the very edges of her frilly outfit over here. If you look along the sides, the borders of these sleeves over here, you can see it. It is very obvious, but once again, this is common with price figures. That is how they keep the cost down. They don't really spend that much money on perfecting or refining the figure. This is already pretty impressive given the price point. As for everywhere else, the texture, the detail level, this is pretty much similar to this Liz figure over here, or Taito AMP plus Shizuku Marin Kitagawa, which I've also reviewed before. That is a way smaller figure. But detail levels on that and this one over here is roughly similar, just that this one is superior because number one, she's bigger, and number two, she is standing instead of sitting on the floor. I always prefer standing figures because figures that sit on the floor or on a chair, they feel smaller than they actually are. Yeah. One more thing to note about the sculpt of this figure is seam lines, where different parts meet together, how neat the seam lines are. So at least on the side of her head over here and the front of the figure, you will never see any seam lines. So that is all good. But if you look at the figure from the side or from behind especially, on both of her arms over here, the sleeves, the elbow region over here, you will see a very obvious seam line where her arms are separate parts from the main body. At least you won't be able to see that from the front because in front of the figure, this seam line is concealed as one of the folds of her dress or her blouse over here. So you can't really see it that clearly from the front, but from behind, it is quite obvious. Is that a problem? Not really. Once again, this is a price figure and it is already exceptional in this regard. So if I take into account the visible seam lines, mold lines, how much of it, and the detail level on this figure, this is an 8 out of 10 for sculpting, which is possibly the highest score I've given to any price figure so far. I'm quite stingy with giving marks to anime figures. And then there is the face. The face is perfection. The face is a 9 out of 10. Like, Taito has pretty much mastered Marin Kitagawa's face regardless of which version they're cosplaying. So I would love to see them come out with the most normal Marin Kitagawa, the blonde hair Marin Kitagawa, but maybe in school uniform or maybe in the new bunny suit, the Halloween bunny suit we saw in season 2. So while the sculpt department is as good as it gets for a price figure, what about the paint work? Well, this is not a very detailed figure in terms of character design in the first place. Like, her blouse is mostly dark violet, grey or black. There are no fine details for you to paint very carefully. So in general, you won't be able to see much problems with the paint work, which is the case over here. There is not much complaints to point out. No major paint bleeding, paint transfer or scratches. No major flaws to be seen, at least in front of the figure. But on the back of the figure over here, on her right sleeve over here, you can see some unevenness on the surface, and this is definitely me nitpicking because every price figure has some form of unevenness. Yeah, so there is a bit of it on her right sleeve over here behind the figure, and under direct lighting like this, if you look at the front of the dress over here, you shine some light on it. Maybe there are some areas where you can see some random spots, not sure what those are. Maybe it is paint, maybe it is clear coating or something else. But unfortunately, this kind of translucent spots on anime figures, they are kind of common nowadays, even in scale figures. So that is not necessarily a negative against this figure over here. So major quality control issues with the paint work, not much. Yeah, unless you really look for it. So the score I can give for the paint work of this figure is roughly 7.5 out of 10, which is still a very high score. If there is one improvement I would make to this figure is that I would just grow some balls and maybe get a can of Mr. Hobby's clear coating, can be anti-UV version or the ordinary matte spray, and give this figure a spray. throughout the entire figure. And this figure will end up feeling like a premium scale figure because I don't think there is any coating on the figure based on the feel I get touching the figure. The surface is not as smooth as we get in expensive scale figures, but that is just one clear spray away. Yeah, clear coating. So buy yourself a really nice, a really high quality clear spray, a matte one, and give this figure a clear coating and she will feel premium. Yes. And then finally, the base on this figure, well, they printed something on it unlike Lee's. Lee's, her base over here is completely empty. For this one, they printed Marin Kitagawa Shizuku version. A bit of extra effort over there, I appreciate it. This is a 7.5 out of 10 base for a prize figure, which is still pretty good. And no points deducted for a lack of metal foot peg. I wouldn't expect any. So my conclusion for this figure is very simple. It does not matter whether you hate prize figures or not. Maybe you are that elitist who thinks that only scale figures, the premium expensive ones, deserve to be on your shelf. You still need one of these because it is so cheap. And even though this may not be scale figure quality, not 20,000 yen, 25,000 yen quality, it is quite close to the scale figures coming from budget Chinese brands. Very close. So we are still looking at comparisons with a scale figure that cost maybe 7,000 to 10,000 yen. And what this figure is lacking is just the protective clear coating that feels nicer to the touch compared to those Chinese budget figure brands. It is very close. So this figure of Marin Kitagawa is a must-have for any anime figure collector. Full stop. Highly recommended. So if you found this review to be helpful or informative, please do give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content every week. And until then, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.